I feel like you had an unfair, I'll say unfair advantage, an unfair advantage having a real guitar too early. You didn't slug through the mud of bad sounds that in my head I thought sounded pretty good. And I think that's, again, the value of like that crappy guitar is that if you can sound good on that, you've got yourself a good song. And you're not getting stuck in the, you're not taking for granted what that sound is. You have to really earn it. I think that's something special.
I definitely did not earn my first Gibson. And I mean, earning a Gibson is I think,
That's the origin of the Blues Lawyer.
That is the origin of the Blues Lawyer. That is my origin story.
You're showing off that you can just go get them, right?
Right. But I mean, on the other hand, my first amp was a good old piece of garbage. That was a Rage 108.
There's nothing wrong with the Rage.
No, there is nothing wrong with it. It is, and especially combined with that guitar, it's actually a very stripped down, very angry teenage punk.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, there's certain things, especially like given the the context of who plays it and like their skill level, things that I thought stunk up until like maybe recently was just my like ill-advised and ill-focused perception of the quality of the players and like the context of the times, right? Like, I had a roommate named Jason who played, I mean, this is probably still terrible, but like the Line 6 like Spider.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this sounds like but the thing about that though is like, I think he made some things sound good too. But like in my head, I'm like, oh, this stinks because of just this perception. This is before like terrible internet and like people being jerks about it. I think now there's like a renaissance of people like appreciating things that we thought stunk before, but now like they are what they are and that's their sound. And maybe it's not the exact sound of the fancy things, but like you can make it sound good. Like I was thinking for forever, I didn't care about the DS1, the Boss DS1. I was like, that's not what distortion should sound like. Primarily because Jason had one, and his excuse is, well, if Kurt Cobain had a DS1, I should have a DS1, which is fair. But, Ibanez, whatever, RG something, through a Spider and a DS1, like that probably wasn't the best representation. And we didn't know how to turn knobs. There was no endless YouTube videos of like the secret to DS1 unlocking. You're all using it wrong. I mean, I don't know. Now there's endless videos on how to turn knobs and make things sound good. We'll have plenty of those too. But like, I don't know, DS1 is that for me. Is there anything that you like in your journeys of gear that you thought stunk and then you actually saw one in real life? Like, that's not so bad.
I mean, here's the thing is, PV, people dog on it, or from what my journeys on the internet, they dog on it. Oh, it's a poor man's Fender, or it's a poor man's... No, it's actually not. I mean, Jack and I, we both have classic 30s, and honestly, the tones that come out of it are pretty darn beautiful. And the beauty of the tone isn't just what hits my ears, but it's what hits my heart. And I play it, and I play my guitar through it, and it just makes me want to play the guitar more.
And that's what things should be, exactly. And to me, again, like that's, I don't know, how bad can it be? It's all inside you. You can play. And again, here's a giant PV here, the Penta. It's not a lot of people have it, but it's creamy and green and beautiful. And it's loud and sounds really, really good. I have it on a bunch of records that no one bought, but it's fine. But I feel like PV's maligned from like a branding standpoint. And it's like the popular kid to poop on, like not poop on. That was a weird thing to say, but it's like the target, or like Glenn making fun of Gibson. That's just what he does, and people are like, oh, PV. And then the popular thing now is like, well, since PV moved to China, or since they canceled all their stuff, and now it's just like, I don't know. I just feel like it's a popular brand to like attack, and maybe again because people's intro experience was, oh, I had a Rage when I was 14, or I had a PV Basic when I was 16, and like it made guitar sounds when I plugged my guitar in, and I had a DoD Tech 4 in front of it, and it sounded like the grunge, and that's what it was. And like, I think people just kind of like, well, when I grow up, I'm gonna get a Marshall. Like, at least that's in our age bracket. Right. Where it's like, when I'm a real musician, I'll have a Les Paul plugged into a Marshall, and I'm gonna sound like Slash, and that's gonna be great. And I don't know, it's just weird. I feel like now because people are, I see, there's more information, there's more available, like, hey, that wasn't so bad. Plus our like tone memories are terrible. I was thinking about that too. Like, I have video from when I was like playing back in the day. I'm like, things I thought sounded bad or like were good gigs or bad gigs, I go back and listen back and it's like, that wasn't as bad as I thought. I didn't sound terrible after all.
Look, you're going to be your own worst critic. You really will. I mean, unless you have something cross-wired upstairs, you are going to probably be too harsh on yourself. And again, you got to ask yourself, why do you do this? Why do you play guitar?
Just play. Yeah. Have fun.
I mean, look, Line 6 Spider, is it a great amp? Probably not. But what's the alternative? If you are some kid out in the middle of nowhere and you don't have a lot of money, you don't have a lot of this or that, I mean, oh, my amp is, garbage. The alternative is no amp.
There's nothing.
So if all you got is that, make it yours.
And I think restrictions and limitations make you more creative. They help you find your own way of doing it, right? Like, yeah, it's the easy button to have a JCM 800 cranked up with a Les Paul standard and just crush it. Like, it's easy to sound good. And we'll have videos to show you how to sound good no matter what you have. But when you have limitations, it makes you find, all right, like, what do the knobs do? How do I get this to work the way I want it? And where's my sweet spot? What sounds good to you and what accomplishes the sound that you want? Like, the sounding like Slash doesn't work in every application, but if you sound like Matt and you're Matt, then Matt always sounds right because the sound of Matt is the sound of Matt. That's why I hated playing covers. It was terrifying.
Well, yeah, because your project is, okay, what gear were they going for? What gear do they have? So now I need to match.
Well, everyone's judging you on like what it sounds by comparison. I much prefer, because you can't tell me I played my original wrong. I wrote it. That's the sound I want. Anything Jack White does, it just sound. If you put that in context of any other song, it makes no sense and sounds probably wrong. But it's a Jack White song,
right?
And it sounds right because it's just whatever it is. And so I feel like that's something that I think you should embrace. Don't try to tone chase. Just play more. Find out what makes you inspired to play, or get your amp to hit you in the chest somewhere. Now, if you're playing with Sims, again, this is a thing that I think people struggle with too, right? Like, they'll run out and get a Helix HX Stomp or something, and there's 90 million opportunities. And then they want to go to some other YouTube channels and download their presets. And it's like, what are you doing? You got a thing with a million options that you're never going to be happy of, all this, whatever, decision anxiety, whatever they call it. And then you don't play anything, just find a middle sound, and we'll show you how to do that. That'll be fun.
Also remember, that great sound that you hear on that record, well, you're probably not going to be able to get it in your bedroom. You don't have an engineer there. You don't have 12 mics hooked up to a bunch of amps.
Yeah, and everything's multi-tracked. So even a lead line has at least 2. Any rhythm track I did had at least 4 recordings, and that was on an easy day. I would re-record the same part to be stacked on top of each other. For a big chorus, I'd have 8 to 12 guitars on top of each other, playing almost exactly the same thing. And that's with different amps, different guitars, different minor settings. Now, with the PV Penta, I can turn the pentatone to whatever.
Call us PV.
Point is, they don't want to give me money. They stopped selling this amp 10 years ago. But no, so don't think that you're gonna have this wall of sound because you selected the preset from a certain artist you like, or that you're gonna be able to dial that in and be like, man, this sounds thin. On top of that, little note here. Every guitar that's ever recorded is high pass filtered, which means they cut out everything that's about 100 hertz and below. So everyone complaining of well, there's not enough low end on this amp. Well, congratulations, they're going to cut that out anyway. So I just, as an easy thing to avoid cluttering up the mix, turn your bass down. You're not going to sound thick in the room, but it'll actually sit better in the mix. If you're playing with a band, I know a lot of you just fiddle around in your room, which is fine. but then make it sound good for you. No one's complaining. So I don't know. Like
Other than your neighbors.
I just know like, yeah, like it doesn't help me to like rattle the house. Like that's just not beneficial. But it's fun. Less fiddling.
More playing.